So I just want to give y'all some tips. If you are out there struggling and you're trying to get your own place and you can't get your own place, whether your rental history is fucked up, your rental history is fucked up, or your rental history is fucked up, this is for you. This is not for you if you have an extensive criminal background, charges on the rental property, where certain things happened. And this is like if you have an eviction, you have unpaid balance dues, or just, I guess, the light stuff, broken lease, things like that. But as far as like big charges, like on your criminal record, yeah, even low credit, just a bit of advice. First off, my rental history was fried. I wouldn't say because of an ex, but because of an ex, because it could have been paid, it could have been taken care of. But it wasn't, because that mofo was very selfish. Let's say you have an eviction or you have a broken lease, maybe some unpaid balance, unpaid rent or whatever. I'll give my little story as to how I found out how you can get a rental property, and I can share it because I did have to look this information up. I did have to ask around a few people and etc. etc. So to make a very long story short, pretty much I had an eviction on my record from 2021. During COVID time, I was pregnant. I had really bad hypermesis. I couldn't work. I wasn't working, didn't work for a couple of months. So it was just stacking on and stacking on and stacking on. I was told by the apartment complex that I was living in that they didn't accept, what was that? They didn't accept Texas rent relief. And because they didn't accept Texas rent relief, I wasn't able to get that money. I didn't know that they did accept it until after the fact. I wasn't able to get that money to pay my rent and stay in the townhome that I was living in. So when it came down to it and I wanted to have my own place, what I did was pretty simple. You know how whenever you're looking for properties, you're messaging people at apartments. First off, apartments to me are no-go. Unless you're going to a second chance apartment or an apartment that's taking a bunch of illegals, apartments are a no-go. You're going to have a bunch of problems. You're going to have a bunch of roaches. You're going to have a bunch of issues with maintenance, just a lot of shit, because there's a history of people not taking care of those properties. Same for houses, but not as much in apartments. And then just living all bunched up and caked up. It was just a no-go. So when I was looking up this information, I saw a trend that people would contact private landlords. So what you do is you contact private landlords, and I didn't know this at first. So I was like contacting private landlords to ask about tours, and one of the landlords was like, I don't work with people with evictions. And I was just like, how can you see my eviction? And he sent me a screenshot, because whatever they have, you can look it up. I wasn't able to look it up until he sent it to me. Then I was able to find the court paperwork and all this other stuff. And it wasn't just the rental history, it was the debt, the unpaid debt that I still had under that account. So that was that. And that's when I started to do my research. From what I gathered, I didn't have the money at the time to work with a credit builder to start paying off my unpaid debt and things like that. So I went with the option of drafting a cover letter, and that cover letter basically stating my situation or the previous situation as to why you have, my previous situation as to why I had what I had on my renter's history. So I drafted a cover letter explaining, I was not able to work. I was pregnant. It was during COVID time. And that's another thing for me. Mine was during COVID. So it's pretty understandable. During COVID time, and a lot of other details that I can't remember because it feels like so long ago, but it was only a year ago. My lease is about to be up. And obvious. Pretty much let them know what happened in the most, I guess, best way that I could. And then I sent that draft, don't judge me, to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT kind of tweaked it, edited it a little bit more. And then I put information in there pretty much stating that I'm going to be working towards paying off my past dues. Little did I know, the landlords don't care about that. They just want their money. And from there, I started sending it out to landlords. And this isn't a normal process, because you can't just contact everybody and hope to get a response from any and everybody. They're going to take one look at your cover letter and be like, ugh, I am not about to deal with this. I don't want anything to do with this. This is trifling. This is ghetto. But stuff does happen. So you get the landlords who are really just wanting to rent out those properties so they can get out of their own debt, or they can get some money in their own pockets, or whatever the case is. Of course, the line is long. So luckily, I found a landlord who was willing to work with me. Very nice Asian lady. And she allowed me to, well, first she wanted a co-signer, which to me, it didn't really too much feel like a co-sign. They only asked for his ID and his name. They didn't ask for his social, again, this is just the one that I worked with, so I can't speak for the other landlords that may actually want that qualifying information. So yeah, they asked for a little bit of his information, and then what did she do? Oh, she asked for double the deposit, which was pretty understandable. So and mind you, the deposit was pretty much the rent, $1,600. So it took me 1 month to gather that. Hold on, let me order my stuff.
Good morning, this is Starbucks. What can I start for you today?
Hello, I will get a chocolate cake pop, and I want to try something else. The bacon egg bites.
Ready, chocolate cake pop and the bacon egg bites. Anything else for you today?
Grande vanilla iced coffee.
Grande vanilla iced coffee.
You know, I thought it was gonna be more, but it wasn't. So luckily, I was able to manage that and get the money and get what I needed or whatever. And boom, I moved in, I believe, December 1st. Oh, and a longer lease. Hold on. Yeah, so that was another thing too. She did ask for me to sign a longer lease, which usually I do 12-month lease. Even in this situation, I wasn't like thinking like, oh, I'm gonna find another place. But I assumed, you know, if it was that easy for me to do it before, it'll be easy for me to do it again. But, you know, I'm not thinking like, damn, double the deposit and stuff like that. Like, it was different because before I moved, I was staying with my grandma, and I didn't have to pay any rent. I didn't have to pay any bills, so it's easier for me to save. So it probably would have been a bit more difficult in my situation to rent out another place or to move, or I most likely would have just renewed my lease. I'm not doing that. Because the thing about these private landlords, a lot of them don't take care of their properties the same way a management company would. And I lived on a rental property where, like, the refrigerator broke down, so they gave us a whole new refrigerator type of thing. So she had me sign a 16-month lease. So my lease originally is supposed to end February 28th, apparently. But when I asked her like a couple of weeks ago, hey, you know, if I wanted to break my lease, I'm getting married. Like, would it be any rules or stipulations? Because it doesn't say anything in the lease. about fees or anything, and she was just like, a 60 days notice is all I need. And I was like, bad. So long story short, I'm obviously not staying there long. And then after a while, I don't like when too many people know my I don't like when too many people that are not family know my address. So I like to move around. I like to bounce around and only give access to that information if need be, because yeah. But that's pretty much how I got my own place with my tarnished record. Again, I can only speak from eviction, broken lease, unpaid balance. I cannot speak for a criminal history. And you know, like, some people get put out for selling drugs at their apartment, or damages, like even after they move out. I know of somebody who had like a bunch of holes in the walls and things like that, like, because you're supposed to get a deposit back. But then if things are already taken out of your deposit and then they have more charges to add to that already deposit, then it becomes an overpaid balance. And you know, most people aren't going to pay that back. They're just going to move to their apartment. So yeah, I can only attest for that. So if you are looking to rent an apartment and you have a bad history record, I definitely recommend drafting a cover letter and being very transparent with the landlord. And 9 times out of 10, they're gonna work with you. They may say 600 credit score, perfect renter's history, no evictions, and probably 90% of them are gonna stick to that, but there's a good 10% that is going to work with you. I guarantee it. I don't know if this qualifies for everywhere, but I know as far as Houston, Texas, it's a big place, a lot of opportunities, a lot of people own houses, and the market isn't what it used to be as far as like people renting houses. A lot of people are moving back into apartments and stuff. So I'd say just take the chance. Oh, a red bull truck. I'd say just take the chance, and do what you have to do to make sure you and your family, or you yourself, have, you know, a really good place. But to my knowledge, they will not take you if you have a certain kind of criminal record. They just won't. I'm not saying there's places that don't, but it's like starting from the bottom, like the trenches kind of thing. You just gotta take your chances elsewhere, like maybe a second chance apartment where like they have a lot of illegal people and stuff like that. Anything's possible. You just have to put yourself out there. But I thought I'd share this tip because I felt like I was backed up into a corner, and you know, in a situation where I felt like I was kind of struggling a little bit, and I felt like it was impossible for a little bit, until I started to look around and started to hear other people's stories, like on TikTok and stuff. And then I was like, dang, you know. So if you're watching this and you're looking for your own place, good luck. Keep your head high, keep God in your heart, and keep hope alive, because it'll happen. Okay?